Come with me. A millionaire chief executive officer saw a little girl sleeping at a bus stop what he did the next day. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. The rain had been falling for hours, soft but relentless, washing the streets of New York City with a silver glow under the streetlights. The air smelled of wet asphalt and cold wind. At nearly midnight, Chief Executive Officer Ethan Cole drove his black sedan through the quiet downtown district after another endless board meeting. The car's heater hummed, yet he still felt an odd chill inside, the kind that came from silence rather than cold. He loosened his tie, eyes fixed ahead, when something flickered at the edge of his headlights. There, under the cracked roof of a bus stop, a small figure lay curled on the metal bench. At first, Ethan thought it was just an abandoned bag, but as the wipers swept away the rain from the windshield, he saw her, a little girl, maybe 8 years old, sleeping in a thin hoodie, her knees pulled to her chest, her hair damp and sticking to her cheeks. A faded teddy bear rested against her arm. Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The city was dangerous at night, especially for a child alone. He slowed down, pulled the car to the curb, and sat for a moment, watching through the rain-streaked glass. The little girl stirred slightly, trembling, trying to tuck her face into her sleeves. A wave of unease washed through him. He remembered the news earlier that day, another report about overcrowded shelters, another debate over funding cuts, and he remembered the meeting where his own executives had laughed when someone suggested sponsoring a youth shelter. Not profitable, they said. He had said nothing. But now, staring at that fragile figure beneath the bus stop's flickering light, the word profit felt obscene. Ethan stepped out of the car, the rain instantly soaking through his coat. His shoes splashed in shallow puddles as he approached quietly, not wanting to scare her. The closer he got, the more he saw scratches on her hands, her sneakers torn at the soles, her lips slightly blue from cold. "Hey," he said softly, his voice low but gentle. The girl's eyes snapped open. She sat up fast, clutching the teddy bear. "Please," she whispered. "I am not stealing anything." Her voice cracked, small and scared. Ethan raised his hands slowly, palms out. "It's all right," he said. "You are not in trouble." The girl looked around, confused. "Did you miss your bus?" he asked. She shook her head. "No bus. I just needed somewhere to sleep." Her words hit him harder than he expected. He took off his jacket and placed it gently around her shoulders. She flinched at first, then held it close, her small hands gripping the fabric. "What is your name?" he asked. "Mia," she whispered. "Mia," he repeated quietly. "Do you have somewhere safe to go?" She looked down, silent. Ethan looked at her for a long moment, rain dripping from his hair, thunder rumbling far away. Every instinct told him to call the police, or a shelter, or anyone, but something deeper, something painfully human, told him to stay. "It is all right," he said finally. "You do not have to be afraid tonight." The monitor light of his car blinked behind them, reflecting the word home from an old bus ad above the bench. He glanced at it, then at her. The word felt like fate. "Come with me," Ethan said softly. The little girl hesitated, her eyes uncertain, but when the wind howled and rain hit harder, she slowly nodded. He held out his hand, and she took it. Together they walked toward the car, two silhouettes in the rain, one man who had everything, and one child who had nothing, both about to change each other's lives forever. The rain had softened by the time Ethan and little Mia reached his car, but the wind still carried a cold edge that seemed to slice through the night. Ethan opened the rear door, helping her climb inside. The warmth from the car's heater wrapped around them, turning the fogged windows into pale mirrors of the city's blurred lights. Mia sat quietly, her tiny fingers clutching the collar of his jacket, eyes darting around as if she still expected someone to appear and drag her out. Ethan shut the door, took a slow breath, and slid into the driver's seat. "You are safe now," he said gently. She said nothing, just nodded once, her eyes fixed on the raindrops chasing each other down the glass. He started the engine, unsure where he was even driving. His penthouse? That was absurd. A child in his world of glass and marble would look like a ghost. A hotel? Too cold. A shelter? She had already said she was afraid of them. The car rolled through the sleeping city, streetlights flashing rhythmically across their faces. Ethan glanced in the rearview mirror every few seconds, seeing only her reflection, small, tired, and fragile. "When was the last time you ate?" he asked. "Yesterday," she whispered. "Maybe the day before." He pulled into a 24-hour diner. The sign buzzed in neon pink and blue, flickering between letters. He parked, got out, and opened her door. She hesitated before taking his hand again. Inside, the diner smelled of coffee and rain-soaked coats. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes, looked at them curiously but said nothing. They slid into a booth near the window. Ethan handed her a menu, but she stared at it as if it were written in another language. "You can order anything you like," he said. Her eyes widened slightly. "Anything?" "Anything." She studied the pictures for a long moment and then pointed shyly. "Pancakes. Good choice." He smiled faintly and ordered pancakes, scrambled eggs, and hot chocolate for her. When the food arrived, she stared at the plate in awe, steam rising from the golden stack. She picked up the fork with shaking hands and began to eat, slowly at first, then faster, as if afraid the food might disappear. Ethan looked away, pretending to read his phone, but in truth, he was watching her reflection in the window. He had attended dinners worth thousands of dollars, but somehow this simple meal felt heavier, more real. When she finally slowed down, she glanced at him. "Thank you," she said softly. "You did not have to stop." Ethan met her gaze. "Maybe I did." For a moment, there was only the sound of rain against the glass. Then she asked, "Why were you out so late?" He thought about it: meetings, numbers, profit charts, empty penthouse rooms, and replied, "I guess I forgot what matters." She tilted her head, not understanding, but nodded politely. When they left the diner, the storm had stopped. The air was fresh, carrying the faint scent of wet concrete and coffee grounds. He helped her into the car again. "Where are we going now?" she asked. "To somewhere warm," he answered. The drive back to his building was quiet. As they pulled into the underground garage, Mia's eyes widened at the sight of the marble floors and glass elevators. "Is this your house?" she asked. "My apartment," he corrected. "It is just a place I stay." The elevator rose silently, its digital numbers glowing one after another. When the doors opened, the vast penthouse spread out before them, glass walls, minimalist furniture, and a city skyline glittering like 1,000 stars. Mia stepped inside cautiously, her sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. "It looks like a hotel," she whispered. "Maybe that is why it never feels like home," Ethan murmured. He led her to the guest room, turned on the light, and fetched a clean towel and a soft blanket from the closet. "You can shower and sleep here tonight. No one will bother you." She nodded, still unsure, but when she touched the blanket, her shoulders eased slightly. "You are really kind," she said quietly. "You do not even know me." Ethan smiled faintly. "Sometimes we do not need to know someone to care." He closed the door halfway, leaving it slightly open. Later, as he sat in the living room with a glass of water, he stared at the city outside. Cars moved like silent veins of light, and far below, people hurried through the wet streets. His reflection in the window looked like a stranger. He thought about the boardroom earlier that day, the laughter, the casual cruelty, and wondered how he had ever become one of them. The sound of soft footsteps broke his thoughts. Mia stood by the hallway, wrapped in the oversized shirt he had found for her. "I could not sleep," she said. "It is too quiet." He nodded, motioned for her to come sit on the couch. She looked small against the vast leather cushions. "Do you miss your parents?" he asked gently. "My mom," she whispered. "She got sick. I tried to help, but she did not wake up. Then they took my brother away. I ran because they said they would separate us forever." Her voice cracked, and she rubbed her eyes quickly, embarrassed. Ethan felt something heavy in his chest. "I am sorry," he said. "You are very brave." "No," she said. "I am just scared." He leaned forward. "Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is what you do despite it. The girl stared at him, unsure how to respond, then gave a tiny nod. The clock on the wall ticked softly. You should rest, he said. Tomorrow we will figure something out. She hesitated, then whispered, Will you be here when I wake up? He looked at her and answered without hesitation. Yes, I will. She smiled for the first time, small but real, before returning to her room. When the door closed, Ethan leaned back, his eyes on the city lights again. He had spent his life chasing numbers, but tonight, the only thing that felt right was the promise he had just made. Somewhere down the hall, the faint hum of the guest room's heater mixed with the sound of rain fading into dawn, and for the first time in years, Ethan Cole felt something close to peace. The morning light filtered through the tall glass windows of Ethan's penthouse, painting soft gold on the marble floors. For a long time, Ethan just sat in silence at the kitchen counter, watching the coffee machine hum. He had barely slept. The words of the little girl still echoed in his mind. Will you be here when I wake up? He had promised yes, and for once in his life, a promise felt sacred. The faint sound of small footsteps reached him. Mia appeared in the hallway, barefoot, her hair slightly messy from sleep, wearing one of his oversized t-shirts that looked like a dress on her. She rubbed her eyes and blinked up at him. You are still here, she said softly. Ethan smiled. I told you I would be. He poured her a cup of warm milk, careful not to make it too hot, and placed it on the counter. Good morning, Mia. She climbed onto the high stool, her feet swinging above the floor. Good morning, she said, her voice shy but a little brighter than last night. She looked around the penthouse again. Morning made the space even more intimidating. Everything was glass, steel, or silence. It is very clean here, she said after a moment. Ethan gave a short laugh. That is because no one ever makes a mess. That sounds lonely, she said simply, sipping her milk. He paused, surprised by how easily her words pierced him. Maybe it is, he admitted. The intercom buzzed suddenly, startling them both. Ethan stood and pressed the button. The voice of his assistant, Fiona, came through the speaker. Good morning, Mr. Cole. You canceled your morning meetings. Should I reschedule? Ethan hesitated. No meetings today, Fiona. Sir, you have the investors' lunch at noon. He glanced at Mia, who was staring into her cup, and said, Cancel that too. There was a short pause on the other end. Understood. When he turned back, Mia was looking at him curiously. You are a boss, right? She asked. He nodded. Something like that. You tell people what to do. Sometimes, he said, smiling. But it does not always mean they listen. She tilted her head. You sound like my teacher. He laughed again, the sound foreign to his own ears. After breakfast, he found a small backpack in his closet that had been a gift from a charity event. He handed it to her. You can keep this. We will get you some clothes later. She hugged the bag as if it were made of gold. Thank you. The day passed slower than usual. He tried to work from his home office, but every few minutes he found himself listening for her footsteps or her soft humming from the guest room. She spent most of the morning by the window, staring down at the city below. When he finally asked what she was thinking about, she said quietly, It looks so big from up here. I wonder if my brother can see the same sky. Ethan's throat tightened. What is his name? Noah. He is 6. Do you know where he is? She shook her head. They said a family might take him, but I do not know who. She pressed her forehead to the glass. I just want to see him again. Ethan walked closer but said nothing. He knew words would sound empty. Instead, he handed her one of his sketch pencils from the desk. Draw him, he said softly, so you never forget his face. She looked up at him with surprise, then nodded and began to draw. The picture came to life slowly. 2 stick figures holding hands beneath a yellow sundae. She labeled them Mia and Noah. When she finished, she smiled for the first time that morning. Ethan taped the drawing on the refrigerator door. Now this place feels more like home, he said, and she giggled. Later, he made a call to his legal advisor, asking about child welfare services and the process for temporary guardianship. Mr. Cole, the advisor said carefully, taking in a child involves background checks, paperwork, interviews. Then start it, Ethan interrupted. Immediately. His tone left no room for argument. When he hung up, he realized his hands were trembling slightly. He, the man who negotiated million-dollar deals without blinking, was nervous about one small girl's future. That night, as the city lights flickered beyond the windows, Ethan cooked for the first time in years. It was just pasta and tomato sauce, but Mia looked at the plate as if it were a feast. "You cooked this?" she asked in disbelief. "Do not sound so surprised," he said with mock offense. "I can follow directions." She laughed, and he decided he liked that sound more than any applause he had ever received. After dinner, they sat by the fireplace. Mia clutched her teddy bear and leaned against the couch cushion. "Do you think my mom can see me?" she asked. Ethan looked at the flames dancing in the reflection of her eyes. "I think she can," he said, "and I think she is proud of you." "What about you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Do you have a mom?" He hesitated. "I did, but she passed away a long time ago." "So you were alone too," she said. He nodded slowly. "For a long time, yes." She looked thoughtful, then said, "Maybe we can both not be alone now." Ethan swallowed hard and smiled. "Maybe we can." When she finally drifted to sleep on the couch, the teddy bear pressed to her chest, Ethan covered her with a blanket. He stood there for a long time, watching the firelight flicker across her face. Something in his chest shifted like a lock, turning after years of rust. The city outside was still vast and indifferent, but inside that glass tower, one man and one child had found the beginning of something that felt like family. The following morning dawned clear and cold, the kind of winter sunlight that filled the penthouse with pale gold but gave no warmth. Ethan stood at the window with a cup of coffee, watching the city pulse awake below him. Somewhere behind him came the faint sound of a child's laughter. Mia had found his digital piano and was pressing keys at random, the sound bright and curious. Ethan turned, a soft smile crossing his face. "You play well for someone who has never touched a piano before," he teased. Mia giggled and shrugged. "I just like how it sounds. It is like raindrops." Her small fingers moved again, striking a few soft notes that shimmered in the air. "It is pretty," she said, "but kind of lonely." Ethan nodded. "That is how I felt about this place before you got here." She smiled shyly, unsure if he was serious. He set down his coffee and walked over, kneeling beside her. "Mia, I have been thinking, you should not stay inside all the time. Would you like to go outside today?" Her eyes widened. "Outside? Like the park?" "Exactly," he said. "But we will need to stop by a store first. You cannot go exploring in just that t-shirt." A few hours later, the two of them stepped out of a black car onto the sidewalk near Central Park. Mia wore a small red coat, new jeans, and boots that squeaked every time she took a step. Ethan had insisted on buying her everything she needed, and though she had protested, he had simply smiled and said, "Consider it an early Christmas gift." Now she looked around in awe, clutching his hand as they walked toward the gates. Children ran past, chasing kites and laughter. For a moment she looked uncertain, like she had forgotten how to be a child. Ethan crouched down beside her. "It is okay," he said. "Go play." She hesitated. "What if they ask where I live?" "You can say you are with a friend," he said softly. She smiled and ran off toward a group of kids near the swings. Ethan stood back, watching her laugh for the first time without hesitation. Something in that sound broke open. A part of him he had not known was still locked. He felt an ache nostalgia, maybe regret for all the years he had traded moments like this for boardrooms and numbers. Fiona called him then, her voice sharp over the phone speaker. "Mr. Cole, I have been getting questions from the press. Someone saw you at a diner last night with a little girl. Do you want me to release a statement?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "No statement. It was just dinner." "Sir," she pressed, "you are a public figure. People are starting to talk." He looked at Mia, her red coat bright against the gray park. "Let them talk," he said and hung up. When they returned home that afternoon, Mia was exhausted but glowing. She carried a small paper bag filled with birdseed and a drawing another child had given her. She showed it proudly. "She said I can come back tomorrow." Ethan smiled. "Then tomorrow we will go again." That night, as he tucked her into the guest bed, she asked, "Do people always look at you like that when we are outside?" He hesitated. Sometimes they do, because of my job. Do they not like you? He exhaled slowly. Some do, some do not. That is life when you are the boss. I think you are nice, she said simply. He smiled and brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. That is good enough for me. Later, when she was asleep, Ethan sat in his office staring at a picture on his phone. It was an old photo of him at 22, standing beside his father in front of the company building. His father's arm was around him, but even then, Ethan had been looking away. That was the day his father told him, "Feeling will make you weak, son. You lead with numbers, not heart." Ethan had believed it for most of his life, until now. The sound of rain began to patter softly against the windows again. He turned off the lamp and stood, walking quietly to check on Mia. She was asleep, clutching her teddy bear, the red coat folded neatly on the chair beside her. On the nightstand was her drawing of Mia and Noah. Ethan picked it up and looked at it closely. Two smiling stick figures under a big yellow sundae. He whispered, "We will find him, Mia. I promise." The next morning, he began making calls. First to his legal advisor, then to a private investigator he had once used for corporate security. "I need to locate a child named Noah," he said firmly. "No last name, around 6 years old, possibly in the foster system." "That is not an easy search, Mr. Cole," the investigator warned. "It will take time." "Then start today," Ethan said, "and keep it discreet." After the call, he felt a strange sense of purpose. For years, his goals had been profit margins, quarterly reports, and mergers. Now, it was finding a lost boy for a little girl who trusted him. That evening, Fiona stopped by the penthouse unannounced. She froze when she saw Mia sitting on the couch, drawing. "Mr. Cole, what is going on? Who is this child?" Ethan calmly closed his laptop. "Her name is Mia. She is staying here for now." Fiona frowned. "Do you realize what people will think if they find out? This is not part of your life. You are risking your image, the company's reputation." "Then the company can wait," he said. "This is not about image. It is about doing something that matters." Fiona stared at him for a long moment before softening slightly. "You have changed," she said quietly. "Maybe that is not a bad thing," he replied. When she left, Ethan turned back to Mia, who looked up from her drawing. "Was she mad?" "A little," he said, "but she will be fine." "People get mad when they do not understand," Mia said, nodding wisely. He smiled. "You are very smart. You know that? That is what my mom used to say." She yawned, curling up on the couch. "You keep your promises, right?" "Always," he said. "Then you will find Noah." He looked at her peaceful face as her eyes closed. "Yes," he whispered. "I will." Outside, the city lights shimmered against the night sky. But inside the penthouse, for the first time, Ethan Cole felt like a man no longer haunted by loneliness. He had a mission now, and her name was Mia. The sun had not yet risen when Ethan's phone buzzed against the glass table. The sound jolted him from a restless sleep on the couch. He blinked and answered quickly, his voice low and groggy. "Cole." It was the private investigator. "I may have found something," the man said. Ethan sat up straight. "Tell me." "A boy named Noah, about 6 years old, recently placed in a foster home 2 towns away. No confirmed match yet, but the timing and description fit." Ethan's pulse quickened. "Send me everything you have," he said. Discreetly. "Already done. You will have the file in 10 minutes." Ethan ended the call and exhaled slowly, the weight of exhaustion giving way to a spark of hope. He turned toward the hallway. The faint sound of humming came from the kitchen. Mia was awake, standing on a chair to reach the counter, her hair a golden mess of curls. She was trying to pour cereal into a bowl, but had spilled more on the counter than inside it. Ethan smiled softly and walked over. "Good morning," he said. She jumped slightly, then laughed. "Good morning. I was trying to make breakfast, but your cereal box attacked me." He chuckled and helped her pour the rest. "It is all right. I think the cereal surrendered." She giggled, proud of the joke, and began to eat. As she did, Ethan opened his tablet and read the file that had just come through. A picture popped up. The little boy's eyes were familiar, dark and wide, like Mia's. The report said the child had been placed temporarily with a foster family after the mother's passing and was awaiting a permanent home. Ethan's chest tightened. This had to be him. He looked up at Mia, who was humming between spoonfuls. He wanted to tell her, but part of him hesitated. What if it was not the same Noah? What if hope only led to heartbreak? But the other part of him, the one that had found her sleeping at a bus stop, whispered that faith was stronger than fear. He knelt beside her. "Mia," he said gently, "what if I told you I might have found your brother?" Her spoon froze midair. "Noah?" she whispered. He nodded. "We are not sure yet, but there is a boy who matches his name and age. We will go see him today." Her eyes filled with tears before she even smiled. "You really found him?" "We will find out," Ethan said softly. "Finish your breakfast. We have a long drive." 2 hours later, the black sedan rolled down a quiet suburban street, lined with maple trees still bare from winter. The foster house sat at the end, modest and white, with a blue mailbox and toys scattered on the porch. Mia sat in the back seat, clutching her teddy bear. Ethan turned to her. "Are you ready?" She nodded, but her hands trembled slightly. When they stepped out, a woman opened the front door, kind-faced but cautious. "Can I help you?" she asked. Ethan introduced himself and explained he was there to verify if the boy living with her was Noah. The woman hesitated, studying him carefully. "Wait here," she said and went inside. A moment later, a small figure appeared at the doorway. A boy with dark hair and big brown eyes looked out curiously. He wore a faded red sweatshirt and held a toy car. When his eyes met Mia's, time seemed to stop. She gasped and dropped her teddy bear. "Noah!" she cried, running toward him. The boy blinked, stunned, then shouted, "Mia!" They collided in the yard, wrapping their arms around each other. Ethan stood frozen, his throat tightening as he watched the reunion unfold. The foster mother wiped a tear from her cheek. "They really know each other," she whispered. Mia held Noah's face in her hands. "I missed you so much," she said through tears. "I thought I would never see you again." "I missed you too," Noah said, his voice breaking. "They said you were gone." Ethan stepped closer, his heart swelling at the sight. For the first time, he saw the full picture, the bond that had survived loss, fear, and separation. After a few minutes, the foster mother invited them inside. She explained that Noah had been quiet and withdrawn since arriving, but seeing Mia had lit a spark in him she had never seen before. Ethan thanked her for caring for him and promised to handle everything through the proper channels. "Are you family?" she asked. Ethan paused, then said, "In a way, I am becoming one." Back in the car, Mia and Noah sat together in the back seat, their hands tightly clasped. They did not speak much, just smiled at each other like two stars that had finally found their way home. Ethan watched them through the mirror, emotion stirring deep inside him. He called his attorney on speaker. "I want full custody proceedings initiated," he said firmly. "We will work through every step legally. Both children stay together." "Understood, Mr. Cole," the attorney replied. "It will take some time, but your influence will help." "I do not care how long it takes," Ethan said. "Just make sure they are safe." That evening, as they returned to the penthouse, Mia and Noah explored the rooms together. Their laughter filled the empty spaces that had once echoed with silence. Ethan watched them chase each other down the hallway, the teddy bear now shared between them. When they finally settled on the couch, Noah looked up and said, "Thank you, mister." Ethan smiled and knelt beside him. "You can call me Ethan." "Thank you, Ethan," the boy said sincerely. Mia leaned against her brother and whispered, "See? I told you someone good would find us." Ethan turned away, pretending to fix the fire, hiding the emotion in his eyes. Later, as the children fell asleep side by side, he stood by the window again, watching the city below. He thought about the strange series of choices that had led him here, the wrong turn, the late meeting, the decision to stop at that bus stop. Fate, it seemed, had been waiting for him to remember what mattered most. He looked back at the couch where the two siblings slept, their hands still clasped, and whispered, "Welcome home." The rain began again, soft and steady against the glass, but this time, it sounded less like loneliness and more like peace. The next morning, sunlight spilled into the penthouse like a gentle tide, brightening the marble floor where Mia and Noah sat cross-legged, building towers from Ethan's old chess pieces. Their laughter echoed softly through the open space, wrapping around Ethan like music he had not realized he missed. He stood near the kitchen counter with a cup of coffee, watching them quietly. The air smelled of maple syrup and toast from breakfast. Mia was teaching Noah how to balance a pawn on top of a queen. "You have to be gentle," she said. "See, like this." Noah frowned in concentration, his tongue poking out slightly as he tried. The piece wobbled but stayed upright, and he grinned. "I did it." "You did," Ethan said, smiling. Both children looked up. "Can we keep it like this?" Noah asked. "The tower?" "The tower, the breakfast, the everything," Mia added. Ethan's smile faltered slightly. "We will try," he said softly. The truth was, he wanted that more than anything. But the legal process had only begun, and he knew there would be challenges ahead. Later that morning, Fiona arrived, holding a folder of documents. She froze when she saw the children playing. "So it is true," she said quietly. "You really brought them both here." Ethan nodded. "Fiona, meet Mia and Noah." The children waved shyly. Fiona's expression softened despite herself. "They are adorable," she said, then lowered her voice. "But Ethan, this situation, it is complicated. The media is already curious." He gestured toward his office. "Let us talk inside." Once the door closed, Fiona opened the folder. "There are reporters asking if you are funding an adoption or starting some kind of charity campaign. Investors are nervous. The board wants clarification." Ethan leaned against the desk, crossing his arms. "They can wait. This is not a campaign. It is personal." Fiona looked at him steadily. "Personal has consequences, Ethan. The company's image depends on you." "Then maybe it needs a new image," he said calmly. "One that is not afraid of compassion." Fiona sighed, recognizing the quiet conviction in his tone. "You really have changed." "Maybe I am finally who I should have been," he said. After she left, Ethan sat in his chair for a long moment, staring out the window at the skyline. The weight of his choices pressed on him, but when he heard the sound of Noah's laughter drifting from the next room, it reminded him that some things were worth every risk. That afternoon, he took the children grocery shopping. They walked through the aisles of a local store, an ordinary task that somehow felt extraordinary. Mia pushed the cart while Noah ran ahead, picking cereal boxes with bright colors. "Can we get this one?" he asked, holding up a box with a cartoon tiger. "If you promise to eat more than just marshmallows," Ethan said. Noah nodded solemnly, and Mia giggled. A woman in line recognized Ethan and whispered to her friend, glancing between him and the kids. He ignored it. When they got home, Mia helped unpack while Noah set the table, proudly counting out 3 plates and 3 forks. Ethan cooked again, this time spaghetti with garlic bread. As they sat together, the city lights began to glow through the windows. "Do you always cook now?" Mia asked with a smile. "Only when I have a good audience," Ethan said. "Then you will have to cook every day," Noah declared. They laughed, and for a moment the penthouse felt less like a glass fortress and more like a home. After dinner, Ethan helped them with bedtime. He read them a story, something about a boy who built wings from feathers to reach the clouds. By the end, both children were asleep, their heads resting against each other. Ethan closed the book and watched them quietly, a strange warmth blooming in his chest. He had never known this kind of peace. Yet somewhere deep down, he knew it was fragile. The world outside would not stay quiet forever. The next morning, his prediction came true. A headline appeared online. "Billionaire CEO shelters 2 homeless children, publicity stunt or hidden motive." Ethan saw it as he sipped his coffee, the words burning across the screen. He turned off the tablet before the kids could notice. Fiona called almost immediately. "I told you this would happen," she said. "The story is spreading. Some people think it is fake. Others are calling it inspiring." "Then let them argue," Ethan said. "I know what is real. The board will not see it that way," she warned. "They are meeting tomorrow to discuss your decision-making." "Good," he said. "Then they can look me in the eye when I tell them why it matters." When he hung up, Mia was standing in the doorway, holding her teddy bear. "Ethan," she asked softly, "are we in trouble?" He knelt beside her. "No, sweetheart. You did nothing wrong. Grown-ups just like to talk about things they do not understand." She nodded, but her brow furrowed. "I do not want to go away again." You will not, he said firmly. You are safe here, both of you. Later, as he prepared them breakfast, Noah climbed onto a chair beside him. You are not like other grown-ups, the boy said. You listen. Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe that is because you two remind me how to. When he dropped them off at the small community center later that day, where they could play with other kids, he stayed longer than planned, watching them laugh through the glass wall. For the first time, he understood the simple beauty of an ordinary moment, the laughter of children, the sound of a basketball bouncing, the smell of coffee from the center's cafe. It was real life, not the sterile world of boardrooms. That evening, back at the penthouse, Ethan received a message from his legal advisor. Custody hearing scheduled in 2 weeks. He stared at the screen, his heart pounding with equal parts hope and fear. He looked toward the drawing on the refrigerator, 2 stick figures under a bright yellow sun, and whispered to himself, I will not let anyone take them away. The promise echoed in the quiet apartment as the night deepened, and for the first time in years, Ethan Cole knew exactly what kind of man he wanted to be. The following week arrived heavy with tension. Ethan woke before sunrise, staring at the city skyline as the sky shifted from gray to pink. The custody hearing was less than 2 weeks away, but his board meeting was today, and he knew it would not be easy. The news had spread everywhere. Every major paper had printed a photo of him leaving the grocery store with Mia and Noah. Some headlines praised him as the billionaire with a heart. Others accused him of using orphans for image recovery. Ethan had stopped reading them altogether. In the kitchen, Mia was drawing at the counter, her legs swinging off the stool. Noah sat beside her, carefully coloring within the lines. Good morning, Ethan said softly. They both looked up and smiled. Good morning, Ethan, Mia said. I drew something for you. She held up a new picture, a stick figure family holding hands under a rainbow. That is you, and me, and Noah, she explained proudly. See, we are all under the same sky. Ethan's heart tightened. It is perfect, he said, taking the drawing gently. I will keep it right here. He taped it on the refrigerator next to her first one. For a brief moment, everything felt simple again. But his phone buzzed, shattering the quiet. Fiona's name appeared on the screen. He answered reluctantly. They are all here, she said, and they are not happy. Ethan sighed. I will be there in 20 minutes. Before leaving, he crouched beside the children. I have a meeting this morning, but I will be back soon. Fiona will stay here with you, all right? Mia nodded. Can we make cookies with her? You can, he said with a smile. Just do not burn down my kitchen. Noah laughed. We will not. At the company headquarters, Ethan entered the boardroom to find a dozen faces waiting, older men in suits, sharp eyes behind glasses, and a silence thick with judgment. The chairman, Mr. Avery, cleared his throat. Ethan, before we begin, I want to say this is not personal. But your recent actions have raised concerns among investors. Concerns? Ethan repeated, sitting down. About what exactly? Optics, Avery said simply. You have turned yourself into a tabloid headline. Some believe this. Charitable performance could affect our stock value. Ethan stared at him, incredulous. You call taking in 2 homeless children a performance? You have to admit, the timing is questionable, another board member said. A sudden act of generosity, right when our housing development project is under criticism for evicting families? Maybe the criticism is deserved, Ethan said evenly. Murmurs rippled around the table. We are not in the business of emotion, Avery said. We are here to build profit. Ethan leaned forward. Maybe that is the problem. You all talk about building things, but what have we actually built that matters? We make towers of glass and steel, but not one place that feels like home. The room went silent. Avery's face reddened slightly. Ethan, you are emotional. You have let this situation cloud your judgment. Ethan stood. No, I have finally cleared it. He gathered his folder and turned toward the door. If you think this company cannot survive with compassion, then maybe it should not. He left the boardroom to a stunned silence. Back at the penthouse, he found Mia and Noah covered in flour, proudly presenting a tray of slightly burnt cookies. We tried, Mia said sheepishly. Ethan laughed. the tension from the morning dissolving. They looked delicious. Fiona handed him a cup of coffee. "You walked out, did you not?" she asked quietly. "I did," he admitted. "You just challenged a group of billionaires and did not even raise your voice. I have to admit, that was impressive." "I am done being afraid of them," he said. "For once, I am doing what feels right." That evening, Ethan took the kids to the community center again. They played basketball while he spoke with the director about volunteer programs. As he watched Mia help a smaller child tie his shoelace, he realized she had the same quiet kindness that had drawn him in that first night. When they drove home, Noah fell asleep in the back seat, holding his sister's hand. "Ethan," Mia said softly, looking out the window. "Why do those men from the pictures look angry?" "Because they do not understand us," he said. "But that is all right. Sometimes people get scared when they see someone doing something different." "Are we going to have to leave?" she asked. "No," he said firmly. "You are safe with me." When they arrived home, the penthouse lights flickered softly against the night sky. Ethan carried Noah to bed, tucked him in, and turned to find Mia standing in the doorway, clutching her teddy bear. "Can I ask something?" she whispered. "Anything," he said. "Why did you stop that night? The night you found me at the bus stop?" Ethan looked at her, remembering the rain, the silence, the sight of her small figure under the dim light. "Because something told me I could not keep driving," he said honestly. "Because I saw someone brave pretending not to be scared, and I knew I could not leave her there." She smiled, her eyes shining. "Mom used to say the world has two kinds of people, the ones who walk by and the ones who stop." Ethan knelt down so they were at the same height. "Then I am glad I stopped." "Me too," she said, hugging him tightly. Later that night, Ethan stood by the window again, looking out at the city. But this time, it felt different. The skyline that once looked cold and untouchable now shimmered with new meaning. He could see the reflection of the refrigerator behind him, the rainbow drawing, the stick figures, and the words Mia had written in shaky letters at the bottom. "Family," he whispered the word to himself, as if testing how it felt on his tongue. It felt right. It felt real. And for the first time in his adult life, Ethan Cole smiled not because of success, but because of love. Morning light filled the penthouse again, but this time it carried an unfamiliar stillness. Ethan sat at the dining table reading an email from the company's legal department, his expression unreadable. He had officially been summoned by the board for an emergency vote regarding his position as chief executive officer. The words blurred in his vision for a moment, but when he glanced toward the living room and saw Mia and Noah building a blanket fort, his resolve steadied. He folded the laptop shut and decided he would not let fear dictate his life anymore. "Breakfast is ready," he said, setting plates of pancakes on the table. Noah ran over first, his hair sticking up in every direction. "Can I pour the syrup?" "Only if you promise not to turn it into a swimming pool again," Ethan said with a half smile. Mia giggled, carefully helping her brother. She noticed Ethan's quiet tone and tilted her head. "You look serious," she said. "Is something wrong?" Ethan shook his head gently. "Nothing that cannot be fixed." It was not a lie, but it was not the full truth either. The children started eating while he excused himself to take a call from Fiona. "They are calling the vote for tomorrow," she said. "They have enough support to push you out, Ethan. You could lose everything." He looked out the window, his reflection framed by the skyline. "Then I lose it, but I will not walk away from them." "You mean the kids?" she said softly. "Yes. They need me more than the company ever did." Fiona hesitated, her voice quieter. "You know, the press might turn this around if you make a public statement. A live interview, maybe. Speak from the heart." Ethan considered it. "I am not interested in saving my image, Fiona. But maybe I can save the message." "Then do it," she said. "Let them hear who you really are." That afternoon, Ethan met with a reporter he trusted. The interview was filmed in the penthouse living room, sunlight spilling across the floor where Mia's drawings were taped to the wall. The reporter began with the inevitable question. "Mr. Cole, many people are asking, why did a billionaire CEO take in 2 homeless children? Was it charity, guilt, or something else?" Ethan took a deep breath. "It was humanity," he said simply. "I did not find them. They found me." They reminded me that success without kindness is failure dressed in gold. The reporter nodded slowly. And how has your life changed since then? Ethan glanced toward the children playing in the corner, their laughter a soft echo behind the camera. They gave me something no amount of money ever could. They gave me purpose. When the interview aired that night, it spread faster than anyone expected. The headline read, CEO Ethan Cole speaks out success without kindness is failure. Social media erupted. Some mocked him, but many more applauded him. Thousands commented, sharing stories of their own acts of kindness. For the first time, public opinion was on his side. Still, the board meeting loomed like a storm cloud. The next morning, Ethan dressed in a dark suit. Mia and Noah stood at the door, looking worried. You have to go to that big building again? Mia asked. Just for a little while, he said. But I will be back before dinner. Noah handed him a folded piece of paper. It is for good luck, he said. Ethan opened it and saw a crayon drawing him standing between Mia and Noah, holding their hands, with the words, "Family stays together." His throat tightened. "Thank you," he said softly. "This means more than you know." At the boardroom, the tension was heavy. Cameras from the interview had not been kind to some egos. Mr. Avery began the meeting immediately. "Ethan, the board has reviewed your recent behavior. We believe your actions, while emotionally understandable, are not in the best interest of this corporation. We propose your resignation, effective immediately." Ethan listened without interrupting. When Avery finished, he stood. "I will save you the trouble," Ethan said. "I resign." A murmur spread across the room. "But before I go, I have something to say." He paused, meeting each gaze. "You all talk about numbers and shareholders, but you forget that every dollar we make comes from people who trust us, who need homes, jobs, hope. I forgot that once too. But not anymore. I am done chasing profit without purpose." The silence that followed was thick, but Ethan did not wait for applause or argument. He simply gathered his folder and walked out. Fiona caught up to him in the hallway. "You really did it," she said, half in disbelief. "Yes," he said quietly. "And for the first time, I feel free." When he returned home that evening, the kids were waiting by the door. Mia ran up first. "You are back," she said, throwing her arms around him. "Did they yell at you?" "A little," he admitted, laughing softly. "But it is over." Noah looked up. "So what happens now?" Ethan crouched to meet their eyes. "Now," he said, "we start something new, not just for us but for others like you. A place where no child has to sleep on a bus stop bench again." Mia smiled. "Like a big house?" "Like 100 houses," Ethan said. That night, while the children slept, Ethan sat at his desk and began sketching ideas for what he would later call the Shelter Hearts Foundation. The first note he wrote was simple. Every child deserves warmth, safety, and a future. As he set down his pen, he looked toward the couch where the kids slept under one blanket and whispered, "You changed everything, Mia. You too, Noah." Outside, snow began to fall gently over the city, blanketing the streets in quiet white. It felt like the world was being rewritten, one soft flake at a time. Snow continued to fall across New York City, soft and steady, covering the rooftops and sidewalks with a clean white stillness that felt almost like a new beginning. Ethan stood by the large glass window of his penthouse, watching the snow drift in slow spirals, his reflection blending with the city beyond. Behind him, the living room glowed with warm light. Mia and Noah sat on the floor, cutting colored paper and gluing pieces together for what they called their dream house project. Ethan had joined them earlier, sketching ideas for the Shelter Hearts Foundation, but now he let them lead. "Ours will have bunk beds," Mia said proudly, showing him a small cutout. "And a kitchen with cookies every day," Noah added. Ethan smiled. "Sounds like the perfect plan." He walked over and crouched beside them. "You know, this is how every idea begins, with imagination. You start small, and then you build it for real." Mia looked up, eyes bright. "Are you really going to build it?" "Yes," he said. "For you, for Noah, and for every kid who needs a place to feel safe." He did not say it out loud, but he also meant for himself. Later that afternoon, he met with an architect friend in his office to discuss blueprints. The man, Daniel Reed, studied Ethan's sketches thoughtfully. "You are serious about this," Daniel said. "Completely," Ethan replied. "I want a facility that feels like a home, not a shelter. Private rooms, shared spaces, gardens, a place with dignity." Daniel smiled. "You are not the same man who once told me empathy had no return on investment." Ethan chuckled softly. "I was wrong. It turns out empathy pays back in peace." When the meeting ended, Ethan returned to the living room to find Mia and Noah building a snow fort on the balcony using plastic bins and old boxes. He stepped outside, his breath fogging in the cold. "You two are going to freeze out here," he said. "We are testing our blueprint," Mia insisted. "It is for the dream house." He laughed and wrapped a blanket around both of them. "All right, architects, let us test it from inside with some hot chocolate." As they warmed up by the fireplace, Ethan told them about the Shelter Hearts project. "It will take time," he said, "but soon there will be a real place where kids like you can stay, learn, and dream." Noah tilted his head. "Will you live there too?" Ethan smiled faintly. "I will visit every day. And maybe one day, you will help me run it." Mia clapped her hands. "We will. We will help all the kids." The sincerity in their voices hit him deeply. The next few days moved quickly. Word about Ethan's foundation began to spread after the interview, and donations started to arrive small at first, then growing steadily. People who had once criticized him were now inspired. Former business rivals sent notes of support. Yet, not everyone believed. Some still accused him of using tragedy for attention. Ethan ignored them. He was done trying to prove anything to the world. One morning, as the children watched cartoons, Fiona came by with legal documents. "The court set the final custody hearing for next week," she said. "It looks promising, Ethan. You have support from social services, and your public work has helped your case." Ethan nodded, his chest tightening. "Thank you, Fiona," she smiled softly. "You have changed, you know. Not just in what you do, but in how you look at people. It suits you." When she left, Ethan sat by the window again, watching the kids laughing together. It still amazed him how quickly they had filled his life with meaning. That night, he read them a story before bed, something about stars and wishes. When he finished, Mia asked sleepily, "Ethan, do you ever wish for something?" He thought for a moment. "I used to wish for more success," he said. "Now I just wish for time to see you both grow up happy." Noah yawned. "That is a good wish." After they fell asleep, Ethan walked back to his office and opened his laptop. A new email blinked on the screen. It was from a reporter requesting a follow-up interview about the foundation. He hesitated. His first instinct was to decline. He did not want more attention. But then he remembered what Fiona had said. Maybe his voice could inspire others. He began typing a reply, agreeing to the interview, but with one condition: that it focus not on him, but on the children and the idea that kindness can rebuild lives. The following day, the penthouse buzzed with quiet excitement as preparations began for the shoot. Cameras were set up in the living room, the same spot where Mia's rainbow drawings hung proudly on the wall. When the crew arrived, Noah stood beside the window, whispering to Mia, "Do we have to be on TV?" "Maybe just a little," she said, giggling. Ethan joined them, kneeling down. "You do not have to say anything. You do not want to. Just be yourselves." The interview went smoothly. Ethan spoke with calm conviction, sharing stories of the children he hoped to help and the importance of building community. The reporter ended by asking, "Mr. Cole, what inspired you to change your life so completely?" Ethan smiled, glancing toward Mia and Noah. "A rainy night," he said, "and a reminder that love, once found, should never be ignored." When the cameras turned off, the crew thanked him and left. The children ran up, hugging him tightly. "You did great," Mia said. "You sounded like a real hero," Noah added. Ethan laughed softly. "I do not know about hero, but I am glad if people listen." That evening, after dinner, they watched the snow fall again from the balcony. The city glowed below, quiet and endless. Mia leaned against Ethan's arm and whispered, "You kept your promise. We are not alone anymore." He looked down at her, and then at Noah, who had fallen asleep beside them, his head resting on her shoulder. "No," Ethan said softly, his voice full of emotion. None of us are. The world outside might still question him. But inside that small circle of warmth and love, Ethan Cole knew he had already found his answer. The morning of the custody hearing arrived with a cold, pale light stretching across the city. Ethan stood by the window, dressed in a navy suit, his tie perfectly knotted but his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted it. It had been years since he had felt nervous walking into a courtroom. The last time had been over a business acquisition. Back then, he had only worried about money. Today, it was about two lives that had become his entire world. Mia and Noah sat at the breakfast table, eating toast and fruit. They had no idea how much depended on the outcome of the next few hours. "Do we have to come with you?" Mia asked quietly. "Not today," Ethan said gently. "You both will stay here with Fiona. I just need to talk to some people to make sure you can stay with me forever." Mia's eyes softened, but she nodded. "Will you promise?" He knelt in front of her. "I promise. And I do not break promises." Noah climbed down from his chair and hugged him tightly. "You will win," the boy said confidently. Ethan smiled faintly. "I will try my best." Outside, the city was waking up, the streets wet with melted snow. The drive to the courthouse felt longer than usual. Fiona sat beside him, holding a folder filled with documents, letters of support, and photos of the children. "You have everything you need," she said. "Letters from the school counselor, the community center, the foster agency. Everyone who has seen how much those kids mean to you." Ethan nodded, gripping the steering wheel. "It still feels like they are judging my heart on paper." "They are," she said softly. "But you have more than paper, you have truth." Inside the courtroom, the air was sterile and quiet. The judge, a woman in her 50s with calm gray eyes, reviewed the file before her. The social worker spoke first, detailing Ethan's actions, since finding the children, his care, his commitment, his foundation. The opposing lawyer, representing the foster system, raised one concern. Mr. Cole's lifestyle is highly public. Media attention may not be in the best interest of minors. Ethan stood when the judge asked him to respond. "Your Honor," he began, his voice steady, "I understand those concerns, but I did not invite publicity. It found me. What matters is that Mia and Noah are not stories, they are children. They need stability, kindness, and a place to call home. I can give them that, not because of my wealth, but because I have learned what it means to care." The courtroom was silent for a moment. The judge studied him. "Mr. Cole," she said, "you are aware that guardianship carries responsibilities that extend beyond financial means?" "Yes," he replied. "And I am ready to meet them." The hearing continued for hours. Finally, as the afternoon sun angled through the high windows, the judge spoke again. "Having reviewed the evidence and testimonies, I find no reason to deny Mr. Cole's petition for legal custody. Effective immediately, Mia and Noah will remain under his guardianship." Ethan exhaled slowly, his heart pounding. Fiona squeezed his arm. "You did it," she whispered. Outside the courthouse, the air felt lighter, almost unreal. Reporters waited at the steps, calling his name. But Ethan ignored them. He got into the car, closed his eyes, and let out a long, shaky breath. "Take me home," he said. When he arrived at the penthouse, Mia and Noah were waiting by the door. The moment they saw his face, they ran to him. "You are smiling," Mia cried. "Does that mean?" "Yes," he said, kneeling to their level. "You are staying, both of you, forever." Noah threw his arms around his neck, and Mia started crying, her small hands clutching his suit jacket. "I told you he would win," Noah said proudly. Fiona stood nearby, wiping her eyes discreetly. "Well," she said smiling, "I suppose I should start printing new family Christmas cards." That evening, Ethan took them out to celebrate at a small diner, the same one where he had first taken Mia after finding her that rainy night. The waitress recognized him immediately, her eyes widening in surprise. "You are back," she said. "And you brought company." Ethan smiled. "The best company." They ordered pancakes again, just like before, and this time Ethan joined them in drenching the stack with syrup. Mia laughed when he made a mess. "You are worse than Noah," she said. "Maybe I am learning from the experts," he replied. After dinner, they walked home through the softly falling snow. The city lights shimmered, reflected in the wet pavement. Mia held his left hand, Noah his right. "Ethan," Mia said quietly, "can we still build the dream house?" "We will," he said. "Together." Back at the penthouse, the children changed into pajamas while Ethan lit the fireplace. They curled up on the couch, sleepy but happy. "Tell us a story," Noah murmured. Ethan thought for a moment and said, "Once, there was a man who forgot what kindness looked like. One night, he met two children who reminded him. They showed him that family is not something you are born into, it is something you build, one act of love at a time." Mia smiled drowsily. "That sounds like us." "Maybe it is," Ethan said softly. Within minutes, both children were asleep, their heads resting against his shoulders. Ethan sat still, the firelight flickering across their peaceful faces. Outside, snow fell again over the city that never seemed to rest. But for Ethan Cole, the man who once measured life by profit margins, the only numbers that mattered now were to the ages of the children who had taught him the real meaning of home. The weeks that followed the custody decision moved like a soft, steady rhythm, the kind that comes when a life finally begins to settle into peace. The penthouse that once echoed with silence now carried laughter, small footsteps, and the sound of morning cartoons mixing with the smell of pancakes. Ethan woke earlier than usual these days, not for meetings or deadlines, but to make breakfast before Mia and Noah stirred awake. He found a quiet joy in simple things, pouring orange juice, tying Noah's shoelaces, helping Mia braid her hair before school. Every morning when they left for the community center, Mia would wave from the elevator and call, "See you tonight, Ethan," and Noah would add, "Do not forget the cookies." Those small words had become the music of his mornings. Ethan was no longer chief executive officer of a major corporation. He was something else now, something he did not have a title for yet, but something that felt more meaningful. The Shelter Hearts Foundation had officially launched, with its first building site approved in the outskirts of the city. The blueprints hung framed in his office, each line a promise. One afternoon, he drove Mia and Noah to the construction site. The ground was still bare, but flags marked where walls and rooms would stand one day. "So this will be it," Ethan said, kneeling beside them. "This is where other kids like you will come to start over." Mia looked around, eyes wide. "It does not look like much yet." "Neither did you that night at the bus stop," he said with a gentle smile. "But look how far you have come." She laughed softly, and Noah grinned. "Can we help build it?" he asked eagerly. Ethan nodded. "Absolutely. You can design the playground." Noah's face lit up. "With swings?" "With as many swings as you want." They spent the afternoon drawing their ideas in the dirt with sticks. Mia sketched a library, Noah made a slide that looked like a dragon, and Ethan just watched, his heart full. When they got home, Fiona came by with updates. "The foundation has already received over $1 million in donations," she said. "Schools and hospitals are reaching out to partner. This is turning into something huge." Ethan looked at her, humbled. "It started with one night and one small act of kindness," he said quietly. "It is strange how life works." Fiona smiled. "You have always been capable of greatness, Ethan. You just finally found the right reason." That evening, as snow began to melt into slush outside, Mia and Noah helped him bake cookies. The kitchen turned into a whirlwind of flour and laughter. At one point, Noah accidentally dropped an egg on the floor and looked horrified. Ethan just laughed. "It is fine," he said, kneeling down to help. "Sometimes the mess is part of the fun." After dinner, they sat by the fire again, the same spot where everything had begun to change. Mia held her teddy bear and looked up at him. "Ethan, can I ask something?" "Of course. When you were little, did you ever wish someone would come help you?" The question caught him off guard. He stared at the flames for a moment. "Yes," he admitted softly. "I did. My father was a good man in his way, but he was distant. I used to think success would make me feel safe, but it never did, not until now." Mia rested her head on his arm. "Then I am glad we found you." "No," he said gently. "I am glad I found you." The next morning, the three of them went to a local shelter that the foundation had started sponsoring. Volunteers were painting walls and unloading boxes of toys. When they arrived, several of the children ran up to Mia and Noah, curious. "Are you famous?" one girl asked. Mia laughed. No, just lucky. Ethan helped hand out supplies while the kids played. At one point, he saw a boy sitting alone by the window, staring out at the street. He reminded Ethan of Noah on that first night, quiet, uncertain, afraid to believe in kindness. Ethan walked over and crouched beside him. "Hey there," he said. "What is your name?" "Liam," the boy murmured. "Nice to meet you, Liam. I am Ethan." "Are you the man from the news?" the boy asked. Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe, but that is not important. What matters is how you are doing." The boy hesitated. "Do you think everyone gets a second chance?" Ethan nodded. "Yes. Sometimes it just takes someone to remind you that you deserve one." The boy gave a small smile, and for Ethan, it felt like seeing sunlight break through clouds. On the drive home, Mia looked out the window and said, "That boy looked like me when you found me." Ethan nodded. "Yes, he did. Do you think he will be okay?" "I think he will," Ethan said. "Because now he knows someone cares." Back at home, the evening unfolded quietly. Noah drew pictures of the playground while Mia helped Ethan organize donations for the next event. When the city lights flickered on outside, Ethan stood by the window again, watching the reflection of their little family in the glass. He thought about how far they had come from the rain-soaked bus stop to this warm, glowing room. He had lost his company but gained something infinitely greater. Mia and Noah were his compass now, guiding him toward a life that finally made sense. As he tucked them into bed that night, Mia whispered, "Good night, Ethan. Thank you for not giving up on us." He smiled, brushing her hair from her forehead. "Thank you for teaching me how to start over." When he turned off the light, the apartment fell into peaceful quiet, filled only with the soft rhythm of their breathing. Outside, the city stretched endlessly. But within those walls, Ethan Cole had finally built something real. A home not made of glass or steel, but of love, second chances, and the warmth of belonging. Winter slowly faded into early spring, and with it came a new rhythm in Ethan's home. The snow that had once coated the city melted into soft rain, washing the sidewalks clean and leaving the air smelling of renewal. Mia and Noah had settled fully into their new life school in the mornings, afternoons at the community center, and evenings filled with laughter, homework, and the smell of Ethan's cooking. The penthouse no longer felt like a monument of solitude. It had become a living space, warm and vibrant, covered with drawings, books, and the gentle chaos that comes with family. Ethan stood at the kitchen counter one Saturday morning, flipping pancakes while the kids bickered over who got the first batch. "I saw them first," Noah insisted. "You ate 3 yesterday," Mia countered. Ethan smiled. "Then we will compromise. Noah, you get the first one, and Mia, you get the biggest one." They both laughed, satisfied with the deal. When Fiona stopped by later that day, she looked around the apartment, astonished at the transformation. "You know," she said, "this place actually looks lived in now." Ethan poured her a cup of coffee. "That is the best compliment you could give me." Fiona sat down, glancing at the photos on the wall, pictures of the 3 of them at the shelter, at the construction site, at a small park near the Hudson River. "The foundation is becoming a real force," she said. "You have investors asking to join, and even the city council wants to support your expansion plan." Ethan nodded. "It is not about expansion. It is about connection. I do not want it to be a brand. I want it to be a movement." Mia overheard from the couch and called out, "Can we name the next building after our mom?" Ethan paused, meeting her gaze. "I think that is a beautiful idea," he said softly. "We will call it Grace House." That evening, they visited the construction site again. The first foundation had been laid, and the outline of walls was beginning to take shape. The workers greeted Ethan warmly. "Evening, Mr. Cole," one of them said. "We should have the roof up by next month." "Good work," Ethan said. He turned to Mia and Noah. "What do you think?" Mia grinned. "It looks like a real house now." Noah pointed at a spot near the edge of the lot. "That is where the swings will go." Ethan laughed. "Yes, and I expect you to test every single one of them." The wind carried the scent of wet earth, and for a moment, everything felt right. But as they drove home, Ethan noticed a black car following a few lengths behind. He dismissed it at first, assuming it was coincidence. But when it showed up again the next morning near the community center, His instincts sharpened. Later that day, Fiona confirmed his unease. "The media is circling again," she said grimly. "A new outlet wants to do a story questioning your motives. They are digging into your past." Ethan sighed. "Let them dig. There is nothing to find except a man who used to make bad decisions and finally learned to do better." "Still," Fiona warned, "they might twist things. Be ready." That night, after putting the kids to bed, Ethan sat alone in his office, staring at the city skyline. The noise of the world still tried to reach him, but he had learned to separate what mattered from what did not. He looked at the drawings taped to his wall, the rainbow, the family under the sun, the picture of Grace House that Mia had made. Those were his truths now. The next morning, the article hit the news. The headline read, "Ethan Cole's redemption story hero or opportunist." The story questioned his sudden transformation, implying that his philanthropy might be an elaborate attempt to repair his public image after leaving his company. Ethan read only the first few lines before closing the laptop. Fiona called immediately. "I am sorry," she said. "It is ugly, but it will pass." "I know," Ethan replied. "I just do not want Mia or Noah to see it." "They will not," she promised. When he turned around, he saw Mia standing by the doorway, her teddy bear clutched in her arms. "Ethan," she asked softly, "why are people saying bad things about you?" He walked over and knelt in front of her. "Because sometimes, when people do not understand something good, they try to find something bad instead. But you know the truth, right?" She nodded slowly. "You helped us. You help everyone," he smiled. "That is all that matters." Later that day, they went for a walk in Central Park. The cherry blossoms had begun to bloom, scattering pink petals across the path. Mia skipped ahead, chasing the falling petals, while Noah tried to catch them mid-air. "Look!" Noah shouted, holding a petal in his palm. "It is like snow, but warmer." Ethan laughed, feeling a peace he could not remember ever having before. When they sat on a bench to rest, Mia leaned against him and said, "People can say whatever they want. We know who you are." "You really are the wise one, you know that," he said. "Mom used to tell me that," she said with a grin. Ethan looked at her and then at the sky, where clouds drifted lazily above the trees. "Your mom must have been amazing." "She was," Mia said quietly. "But I think she would like you." Ethan swallowed the lump in his throat. "Then I am honored." When they returned home that evening, he found a letter in the mail addressed to Mr. Ethan Cole, Shelter Hearts Foundation. Inside was a simple note written by a child. "Thank you for building a place where I can sleep without being scared." Ethan held the letter for a long time, his vision blurring with emotion. He pinned it to the refrigerator beside Mia's rainbow drawing. As the lights dimmed and the city settled into night, Ethan Cole realized something profound. The world could question him, doubt him, even try to break him, but love, once given freely, could not be undone. And as long as Mia and Noah slept safely under his roof, the noise outside no longer mattered. Spring deepened into early summer, and the city took on that golden warmth that made everything feel alive again. Ethan had never noticed how beautiful mornings could be until now, how sunlight spilled over the rooftops, how laughter echoed from the park across the street, how the smell of coffee mixed with the sweetness of life itself. Each day felt like a small miracle. Mia and Noah were growing fast. Mia had started piano lessons at the community center, and Noah had joined a Little League baseball team. Ethan went to every game, sitting quietly in the bleachers, clapping every time Noah swung the bat, whether he hit the ball or missed. One afternoon, when Noah finally hit a solid line drive that rolled all the way to the fence, Ethan stood up cheering louder than anyone else. Noah looked back, beaming, and Ethan waved like a proud father who had waited his whole life for that moment. After the game, they stopped for ice cream at a small shop on the corner. "You were amazing today," Ethan said. "You think I can be a professional player one day?" Noah asked. "I think you can be whatever you want," Ethan said with a smile. Mia, holding her mint chocolate cone, added, "As long as you practice more and stop eating all the snacks." Noah laughed, and Ethan felt that familiar warmth in his chest, the one that came whenever he looked at them and realized just how lucky he had become. The next week, the first Shelter Hearts building Grace House was finally finished. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was scheduled for a sunny Friday morning. Volunteers, donors, and local families gathered outside, as Ethan stood with Mia and Noah beside him. Reporters held cameras, but this time their lenses did not bother him. He was calm, proud, and ready. A local news anchor introduced him. Today we are here to celebrate the opening of Grace House, a home for children in need, founded by Ethan Cole. Mr. Cole, would you like to say a few words? Ethan stepped up to the microphone. This place began as a promise, he said. A promise made on a rainy night when I found a little girl sleeping at a bus stop. That promise became a purpose, and that purpose turned into this home. Grace House is not just a building, it is proof that compassion can rebuild what the world tries to break. The crowd clapped, and Mia squeezed his hand. You did it, she whispered. He smiled. We did it. After the ribbon was cut, the doors opened, revealing bright rooms filled with toys, books, and sunlight streaming through wide windows. The children from nearby shelters ran inside, exploring the space with wide eyes. Some laughed, some cried softly, unable to believe it was real. Ethan stood in the doorway, overwhelmed. It was everything he had dreamed of, and yet, it still felt like only the beginning. That evening, when they returned home, the three of them sat on the balcony, watching the city glow beneath the orange dusk. So what happens next? Mia asked. Next, Ethan said, we build another Grace House, and then another, until there are no children left without a home. Noah leaned against his arm. You are like Santa, but for houses. Ethan laughed. That is the nicest thing anyone has ever called me. The laughter faded into quiet as they watched the stars appear one by one. For the first time in years, Ethan felt completely at peace. But life has a way of testing peace. A few days later, while Ethan was reviewing plans for the next project, he received a call from Fiona. Her tone was serious. Ethan, we have a problem, she said. What kind of problem? A former associate from your old company is trying to challenge your foundation's tax status. They are claiming it is a front for personal gain. It is nonsense, but they filed a report, and the investigation will go public. Ethan closed his eyes, the weight settling in. Why now? Because you walked away from power, she said. Some people never forgive that. He stayed quiet for a moment, then said, let them come. The truth will stand. When he hung up, he found Mia sitting on the couch, sketching in her notebook. She looked up and saw the tension in his eyes. Is something wrong? She asked. Just grown-up problems, he said with a small smile. Nothing you need to worry about. You always say that, she teased. And you are always right, he said, tapping her nose. Later that night, after putting the kids to bed, Ethan sat by the window again, staring at the city lights. He thought about everything he had built, the foundation, the home, the life he shared with Mia and Noah. None of it had come easy, and he knew the fight was not over. But he also knew this time he would not face it alone. He opened his laptop and wrote a public statement, his words simple and honest. Shelter Hearts was not built for image or fame. It was built from loss, love, and hope. I welcome any investigation because transparency is part of integrity. But know this, no matter what happens, Grace House will not close its doors. When he finished, he turned off the lights and walked to the children's room. They were fast asleep, their hands still touching as they dreamed. Ethan stood there for a long time, his heart steady. Whatever the world tried to take from him, it could never take this. The next morning, sunlight flooded the room, and the smell of pancakes filled the air once again. Life went on, quietly and beautifully. And for Ethan Cole, that was victory enough. The following weeks brought turbulence. The investigation into Shelter Hearts became public, splashed across online headlines and whispered through news anchors' practiced tones. Billionaire's charity under scrutiny, one article read. Is Ethan Cole's redemption too perfect to be real? Another questioned. The same people who had once praised his transformation were now eager to doubt it. Ethan read none of it, but Fiona filtered the storm for him. It is more noise than substance, she said one morning at the penthouse. They have no evidence of wrongdoing, but public doubt spreads faster than truth. Ethan set his coffee cup down. Then we show them the truth. He organized an open house at Grace House, inviting journalists, donors, and city officials to see the work firsthand. When the day arrived, the children living there greeted visitors with laughter, offering cookies and showing off their art projects. Ethan walked through the halls beside them, pointing out the classrooms, the garden, the playroom. The light coming through the windows caught on the soft pastel colors of the walls, and the smell of fresh paint still lingered faintly, a reminder that everything here was new and alive. A reporter asked him directly, "Mr. Cole, how do you respond to people who say this foundation is your way of rewriting your past?" Ethan stopped and faced the cameras. "They are right," he said. "I am rewriting my past by making sure no one else has to live through the loneliness I once ignored. If that is a crime, then I will gladly be guilty." The room fell silent for a moment, before the sound of quiet applause began to spread among the crowd. That clip went viral within hours, not because it was rehearsed, but because it was true. That night, as the city buzzed with discussion, Ethan returned home to find Mia and Noah waiting on the couch. They were wearing matching pajamas, holding a sign they had drawn together in colorful markers. It read, "We believe in you, Ethan." He laughed softly, pulling them both into a hug. "Thank you," he said. "You two are my best defense team." The next morning, the news had already begun to shift. Articles that had once questioned his motives now praised his transparency. Even the harshest critics softened their tone, acknowledging the authenticity of his work. But Ethan did not celebrate. Instead, he drove quietly to Grace's house to spend time with the children. He sat on the floor with them, building towers from blocks, reading picture books, and listening to their stories. At one point, a little girl named Emma crawled into his lap and asked, "Are you going to build more of these houses?" He smiled. "As many as we can." "Then can you build one with a big tree?" she asked. "With swings and lights?" "You have my word," he said. Later that evening, Fiona found him in his office, reviewing architectural drafts. "You know, you could slow down a little," she said. "The public has come around. You do not have to prove anything anymore." Ethan looked up from the papers. "This is not about proving anything. It is about continuing what we started." Fiona studied him for a moment. "I have known you for 10 years, Ethan. I have seen you at your worst and now at your best. And I think this version of you, this one, might actually be happy." He smiled faintly. "For the first time I am." Days turned into weeks, and the foundation began to expand. Construction for the second shelter had already begun, this one closer to the coast, designed with wide windows to let in the ocean breeze. Mia and Noah often accompanied him to the site, their laughter filling the air as they chased each other along the dirt paths that would soon become hallways. One afternoon, while Ethan spoke with engineers, he saw Noah helping a smaller boy pick up scattered nails from the ground. The gesture was small but pure, and it made Ethan realize something profound: kindness had become contagious. That evening, back at home, the three of them had dinner together. Mia was talking excitedly about her piano recital scheduled for next week. "You will come, right?" she asked. "You cannot be late like last time." Ethan pretended to be shocked. "I was only 3 minutes late." 3 minutes is a lot when you are playing in front of everyone," she said, crossing her arms. He laughed. "Then I will be there 10 minutes early." "Promise?" "Promise," Noah chimed in. "And can we get ice cream after?" "We will get the biggest ice cream in New York City," Ethan said, and both children cheered. After dinner, when the kids were asleep, Ethan stood once again by the window. The city lights shimmered below, but his reflection showed something different, a man no longer defined by power, but by purpose. He thought of the path that had brought him here. One rainy night, a lost girl at a bus stop, and the choice to stop instead of drive past. That single act had changed everything. His phone buzzed on the table, a message from the city's Department of Housing. Approved. Grant funding for Shelter Heart's expansion project. Ethan exhaled slowly. Overwhelmed. The dream was growing beyond him now, spreading like ripples across still water. He turned off the lights and checked on Mia and Noah one last time. They were both asleep, the moonlight spilling gently across their faces. He whispered softly, "We did it, kids. We are just getting started." Outside, the city pulsed with life, but for Ethan Cole, the only sound that mattered was the quiet rhythm of two small hearts sleeping peacefully under his roof. The evening before Mia's piano recital, the penthouse was filled with the sound of gentle practice. The soft notes drifted through the air like raindrops, hesitant at first, then more confident as her fingers found the rhythm. Ethan sat quietly on the couch, pretending to read but really just watching her. Every few minutes she would glance over her shoulder and say, "Was that good?" And he would always reply, "It was beautiful." Noah sat on the rug beside them, building a small model out of blocks, and occasionally shouting, "You missed a note," just to make her laugh. The sound of their laughter mixed with the music, filling the home with warmth that money could never buy. The next morning, they left early, Mia wearing a blue dress and a ribbon in her hair, clutching her sheet music like treasure. "You promised you would not be late," she reminded Ethan as they got in the car. "I know," he said, smiling. 10 minutes early, remember?" She nodded, satisfied, and Noah buckled himself in, already humming the tune she had practiced. When they arrived at the community center auditorium, the hall was decorated with paper flowers and banners made by the kids. Parents and families filled the seats, chatting quietly while the children tuned their instruments. Ethan found a spot near the front, his heart swelling with pride as Mia took her place on the stage. When it was her turn, she looked nervous, her small hands trembling slightly above the keys. Ethan gave her a reassuring nod, and she smiled faintly before taking a deep breath. The first few notes were shaky, but then the melody began to flow, tender and pure. The room fell silent, every person drawn in by the emotion behind each note. When she finished, there was a brief hush before applause erupted. Ethan stood, clapping until his hands stung. Mia bowed, her face glowing with pride. After the performance, she ran into his arms. "Did I do okay?" she asked breathlessly. "You were perfect," he said, lifting her up. "You made the whole room feel something." Noah tugged on his sleeve. "Ice cream time?" Ethan laughed. "Ice cream time." They went to their favorite shop again, ordering 3 cones. As they sat by the window, Ethan watched the two of them laughing, their smiles reflected in the glass. It reminded him of how far they had come. From a rainy bus stop to this simple joy, real family. Later that week, construction began on the second Shelter Hearts site, and Ethan found himself busier than ever. Reporters still called, but now their questions were kind, focused on progress rather than scandal. The city had approved grants to fund 3 more homes, and the foundation was expanding faster than he had imagined. Yet, despite all the success, Ethan stayed grounded. He spent his mornings dropping the kids at school and his evenings cooking dinner, reading bedtime stories, and helping with homework. The fame, the praise, none of it mattered as much as those quiet hours between dusk and sleep when the world felt small and safe. One evening, Fiona came over with paperwork. "The city wants you to speak at the charity gala next month," she said. "It will raise enough money for 2 more Grace houses." Ethan looked at the forms and smiled faintly. "I will do it. But no tuxedos this time. I want the kids there. People should see who this is really for." Fiona nodded. "You really are different now, you know that?" He chuckled. "I hope so." That weekend, they visited the original Grace house again. It had been open for several months, and the walls were now covered with drawings and photographs of smiling children. One of the caretakers greeted them at the door. "Mr. Cole," she said warmly, "you should see the garden. The kids planted it themselves." Ethan followed her outside, where a row of flowers stretched across the small yard. Mia and Noah knelt down beside a little boy who was watering the soil with a plastic can. "You see," Mia explained, "if you talk to the plants, they grow better." The boy giggled, whispering something to a sunflower. Ethan watched them, his heart full. As they walked back to the car, Noah looked up and said, "Do you think we can live forever, Ethan?" Ethan smiled. "Not forever, but what we build can." "Like the houses?" Noah asked. "Exactly like the houses." That night, after they returned home, Mia left a drawing on Ethan's desk. It showed 3 stick figures, her, Noah, and Ethan, standing beside a big house under the words, "Home is where you stay loved." He stared at it for a long time, the corners of his eyes wet. He framed it the next morning and hung it beside the first drawing she had ever given him. Days passed peacefully until one afternoon when a letter arrived in the mail. It was from a law firm representing his old company. They wanted him to testify in an upcoming investigation against one of his former partners, the same man who had tried to discredit Shelter Hearts. Fiona brought it to his attention immediately. "They need you to cooperate," she said. "It could reopen old wounds, but it might also bring closure." Ethan leaned back in his chair, thinking. Then we do it, he said finally. The truth deserves to be spoken. That night, after Mia and Noah went to bed, he stood by the window again. The city shimmered below, and for the first time, he felt no fear of facing his past. He knew who he was now, a man rebuilt not by wealth, but by kindness, a father in all but name. And as he watched the lights flicker across the skyline, he whispered to himself, "Let them see the truth. I am ready." Outside, the night stretched endless and calm, as if the world itself was holding its breath for what was to come next. The following week unfolded under a gray sky, heavy with rain and the quiet tension that comes before change. Ethan sat in the back seat of the car, looking out at the courthouse that loomed ahead. It was not the same courthouse where he had fought for custody, but the feeling in his chest was eerily familiar, a mixture of nerves, determination, and the quiet awareness that something larger than himself was at stake. Fiona sat beside him, reviewing notes. "You will only need to answer a few questions," she said. "Tell the truth, stay calm, and do not let them pull you into arguments." Ethan nodded. "The truth is the only thing I have to give." When he entered the courtroom, the low murmur of conversation hushed. The hearing was a public one, part of an investigation into corporate corruption tied to his old company. One of his former partners, Richard Kane, stood accused of embezzlement and falsifying records. Ethan had not spoken to him in years, but seeing the man again, once a friend, now a stranger, stirred something bittersweet inside him. The prosecutor began with simple questions about the company's operations during Ethan's tenure. Ethan answered clearly, his voice calm but steady. "At the time, I believed we were following procedure. I later discovered that Mr. Kane had been redirecting funds through shell accounts under the guise of construction expenses." Richard's lawyer interjected sharply. "Mr. Cole, you benefited from those accounts, did you not?" Ethan shook his head. "No. When I realized what was happening, I confronted him privately. He told me it was none of my concern. That is one of the reasons I resigned." The lawyer sneered. "How convenient that your moral awakening coincided with your new reputation as a philanthropist." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he did not react. "My awakening," he said, "coincided with realizing how many lives were hurt by people like us, pretending that success makes us untouchable." The room went silent. Even the judge looked up, her expression softening slightly. When the hearing ended hours later, Ethan stepped outside into the rain. Cameras flashed, but he ignored them. Fiona followed close behind, holding an umbrella. "You did well," she said. "They cannot twist your words this time." "Good," he replied. "Maybe now, some justice will come of all this." Back at the penthouse, Mia and Noah were waiting. Mia ran to him as soon as the door opened. "You are soaked," she said, handing him a towel. "Did they yell at you?" Noah asked, wide-eyed. Ethan chuckled, kneeling down. "No yelling today, just a lot of talking. But it is over now." "Are you in trouble?" Mia whispered. "No," he said softly, "not anymore." That night after dinner, they sat together on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. The storm outside raged, but inside, everything felt still and safe. Mia leaned her head on his shoulder. "You always tell the truth," she said. "That is brave." Ethan smiled faintly. "Sometimes it is scary too. But you still do it," she said proudly. "That is what makes you brave." The next morning, Fiona called with news. "The judge has ruled in favor of full prosecution against Kane," she said. "Your testimony made the difference." Ethan exhaled, relief flooding through him. Then it was worth it. "There is more," she added. "A major newspaper wants to do a feature on you, your journey from CEO to Shelter Heart's founder. They say it could inspire others." He hesitated. "I will do it, but only if the story is about the children, not about me." "Understood," she said. Over the next few weeks, life returned to its new normal. Grace House flourished, filled with children who now had a place to belong. The second location was already halfway complete, and letters continued to pour in from families, volunteers, and supporters. One afternoon, Ethan received a small package in the mail. Inside was a framed photo of the Grace House children holding a handmade banner that read, "Thank you, Mr. Cole." Attached was a note from Emma, the little girl who had once asked for swings and lights. "We put the swings up today. They really do make you feel like flying." Ethan smiled. setting the photo on his desk beside Mia's drawing. That evening, he took Mia and Noah to visit the construction site again. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. The children ran through the half-built corridors, their laughter echoing between the wooden frames. "It is like a maze," Noah shouted. "It is like a dream," Mia said softly. Ethan stood there, watching them, and thought about how life had turned full circle. He had once built skyscrapers that reached for the clouds, thinking that was what greatness meant. Now he built homes that reached for hearts, and it felt infinitely more meaningful. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Mia ran up and took his hand. "Ethan," she said, "when we finish all the houses, what will we do next?" He looked down at her, smiling. "Then we will find another way to help. There is always someone out there who needs a hand." She nodded thoughtfully. "Mom used to say that too." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "She must have been a very wise woman." "She was," Mia said, "but I think she would like you." He squeezed her hand gently. "Then I will keep trying to deserve that." That night, as they drove home, the city lights shimmered in the distance like scattered stars. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets gleaming under the glow of the lamps. In the rearview mirror, Ethan saw Mia and Noah asleep, their heads resting against each other. For the first time in a long time, he realized that the noise of the world, the fame, the fear, the headlines no longer mattered. What mattered was right there in the back seat. His purpose, his peace, his family. And as the car rolled quietly through the city, Ethan Cole knew that no storm, no scandal, no shadow from his past could ever take that away again. Summer arrived with long golden days that seemed to stretch forever. The city was alive with energy, and for the first time in years, Ethan allowed himself to slow down and breathe it all in. The second Shelter Hearts location was nearing completion, and the foundation's impact had begun spreading across the country. Letters arrived daily, some from children, others from families, all of them thanking him for giving them hope. Yet what made Ethan proudest was watching Mia and Noah grow. They were thriving, confident, happy, curious about the world. Mia was taking piano seriously now, and Noah had started talking about becoming an architect, just like Ethan, but with more colors. Their laughter had become the heartbeat of his home. One warm Saturday morning, they decided to visit the countryside to escape the city's noise. Ethan rented a small cabin near a lake surrounded by pine trees, a place where the air smelled of earth and freedom. When they arrived, Noah ran to the edge of the dock, shouting, "Look, Mia, you can see the fish." She giggled, holding onto his shirt so he would not fall in. Ethan set down their bags and watched them play, the sunlight glimmering off the water. "You two act like you have never seen a lake before," he teased. "Not like this one," Mia said, spinning around. "It looks like a mirror." Ethan smiled. "Then let us make some memories worth reflecting." They spent the afternoon skipping stones, roasting marshmallows, and telling stories as the sun melted behind the trees. At one point, Mia leaned her head against Ethan's shoulder and said softly, "This is what happy feels like." He nodded, his throat tight. "Yes, it is." That evening, after the children had fallen asleep inside the cabin, Ethan sat outside under the stars, the night quiet except for the sound of crickets and the gentle ripple of water. He thought about how much had changed in such a short time. He had once lived in a world where silence felt like loneliness. Now, it felt like peace. The next morning, they woke early and went for a walk through the forest trail. Mia collected wildflowers while Noah tried to count how many birds he could spot. "That one is number 7, he shouted, pointing at a blue jay. Ethan laughed. "At this rate, you are going to run out of fingers." "Then I will start counting with my toes," Noah said proudly. After lunch, they decided to visit a nearby small-town fair. The main street was lined with stalls, selling handmade crafts and sweets. A local band played cheerful tunes, while families walked past holding ice cream cones and cotton candy. Mia and Noah tried their first Ferris wheel ride, gripping Ethan's hands as the seats rose into the air. From the top, the whole valley stretched below them: green fields, blue lake, and the winding road that led back to the cabin. "It looks like a painting," Mia whispered. "Everything looks small from up here," Noah added. Ethan looked out at the view, the warm breeze brushing against his face. "That is the thing about perspective," he said. Sometimes you have to rise above it all to see how far you have come. When they got back to the cabin that evening, the sky was painted in shades of pink and gold. Ethan started a small fire by the lake while the kids roasted marshmallows again. "Ethan," Mia said between bites, "when we grow up, do you think we can build our own Grace house?" "Of course," he said. "You can build as many as you want." Noah looked up from his marshmallow. "Can I build one for animals too?" Ethan chuckled. "Shelter hearts for pets. I like that." They all laughed until their stomachs hurt. Later that night, as the fire died down, Mia suddenly looked serious. "Do you ever miss your old life?" she asked. Ethan looked at her, thinking carefully. "Sometimes I miss the people I worked with, but not the man I was back then. I thought I had everything, but I did not know what happiness really meant." "And now you do?" she asked. He nodded. "Now I do." The stars above shimmered like 1,000 tiny promises. Noah had fallen asleep by the fire, wrapped in a blanket, his head resting on Mia's lap. She stroked her brother's hair absent-mindedly, then said, "You know, I think Mom would have liked it here too." Ethan swallowed hard, the emotion catching in his throat. "I think she would have loved it." They sat there in silence, the night wrapping around them like a soft blanket. In that moment, Ethan realized something profound. This was what legacy truly meant. Not the buildings, not the headlines, not even the foundation. It was the laughter around a campfire, the trust in a child's eyes, the simple act of being present. The next morning, before leaving, they took one last walk by the lake. Mia picked up a flat stone and said, "We should make a wish before we go." "All right," Ethan said, smiling. "What will you wish for?" She closed her eyes. "That we can do this every year." "And you, Noah?" Ethan asked. "That the next house we build has a slide inside it," Ethan laughed. "Those are good wishes." When it was his turn, he held the stone for a moment, feeling its smooth surface. "I wish," he said softly, "that you both always know how loved you are." Then, together, they threw their stones into the water, watching the ripples spread wide across the lake. As they drove back toward the city later that day, the cabin grew smaller in the rearview mirror, but the peace it had given them stayed. In the front seat, Ethan smiled to himself, the sunlight catching in his eyes. The road ahead was long, but for the first time, it felt like home followed him wherever he went. When they returned to the city, everything felt both familiar and new. The noise of traffic, the shimmer of glass towers, and the scent of roasted coffee from the corner cafe all welcomed them back to their daily rhythm. But something inside Ethan had shifted. The weekend at the lake had reminded him of what truly mattered. As the car pulled into the underground garage, Mia stretched in her seat. "I like vacations," she said with a sleepy smile. "We should have them more often." "Agreed," Ethan replied. "Next time, we will bring fishing rods." Noah perked up. "And a boat, a real one," Ethan laughed. "One adventure at a time, Captain." Back upstairs, the penthouse felt brighter than usual. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, glinting off the drawings that still decorated the refrigerator. Life had grown full of small, perfect details. Mia's piano sheet music on the coffee table, Noah's half-built Lego skyscraper on the floor, a forgotten cup of cocoa by the window. These weren't messes to him anymore. They were reminders of living. The next morning, Ethan prepared breakfast as usual, humming a tune Mia had been practicing. Fiona arrived just after 9, holding her tablet and smiling. "You are trending again," she said. "In a good way this time." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "That is rare." She set the tablet on the counter. The screen showed an article titled, "The CEO Who Chose Compassion. Ethan Cole's Foundation Sets New Standard for Social Change." Photos of Grace House, smiling children, and Ethan with Mia and Noah filled the page. "People love the story," Fiona said. "You have inspired a movement. There are donors from other states who want to start Shelter Hearts branches in their own communities." Ethan poured her a cup of coffee. "That is incredible. But the goal is not expansion, it is education. Teach others how to build sustainably, then let them lead." "You really do not want the spotlight anymore, do you?" she asked. He smiled faintly. The spotlight was never home. Later that afternoon, he took Mia and Noah to Grace House for a special event. It was the Foundation's first summer festival, with music, games, and food donated by local businesses. Balloons floated in the air, and the garden was filled with laughter. Mia helped hand out lemonade while Noah joined a group of kids in a tug-of-war. Ethan moved among the crowd quietly, shaking hands, thanking volunteers, and listening to stories. One woman approached him with tears in her eyes. "My daughter lives here now," she said softly. "You saved her life. She used to sleep under bridges, but now she is painting again. Thank you." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "You do not owe me thanks," he said. "Just keep believing in her." When the sun began to set, the festival ended with a song the children had prepared, a simple tune about home and hope. Mia stood on the small stage, playing the piano while the others sang. Noah sang too, his voice high and clear. Ethan watched from the back of the crowd, his chest swelling with pride. The lyrics spoke of finding light after darkness, of people who stopped to help instead of walking by. When the song ended, the crowd erupted in applause, and Ethan's heart felt full to the brim. After the event, they walked through the garden together, the sky painted in orange and pink. Mia looked up at him. "Did you like the song?" "I loved it," he said. "It was about you, you know." She grinned. "Maybe a little." That night, back at home, Ethan tucked them into bed. As he turned to leave, Mia's small voice stopped him. "Ethan," she said, "when I grow up, I want to do what you do." He smiled, sitting at the edge of her bed. "Build houses?" "No," she said thoughtfully. "Change things, make people less scared." He brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "Then you already know the secret. You do not need to be rich or powerful to make change. You just need to care enough to start." "Then I am starting tomorrow," she whispered sleepily. "Good," he said softly. "I will be right there with you." After they fell asleep, Ethan returned to his office and looked out over the city lights. His reflection stared back at him in the glass, a man who had once chased success and found emptiness, now grounded in purpose. His phone buzzed with a message from the mayor's office. Proposal approved, city partnership confirmed for 3 new Grace houses. He stared at the words for a long moment, feeling both humbled and grateful. The world was finally aligning with what his heart had known all along, that true leadership wasn't about control, but compassion. Before heading to bed, he checked on the children once more. They were asleep. Noah sprawled sideways, and Mia curled neatly under her blanket. He whispered quietly into the dark, "You two are my greatest project." The next morning brought sunlight and laughter again. Noah ran through the kitchen shouting about pancakes. Mia played a few piano notes before breakfast, and Ethan joined in, flipping pancakes with exaggerated flair. Fiona called during breakfast, laughing as she heard the chaos in the background. "You sound like a different man," she said. "I am," he replied simply. "I finally built something that lasts." After the call, Mia looked up at him. "Are we going to the new Grace house today?" "Yes," Ethan said. "We will help paint the walls." Noah grinned. "Can I paint a rocket?" "Only if you let Mia paint stars next to it," Ethan said, ruffling his hair. They laughed, and as they got ready to leave, Ethan paused by the door, taking one last look around the apartment, the piano, the drawings, the light. It was no longer just his home, it was theirs. And as the elevator doors closed behind them, the future waited not with the cold weight of expectation, but with the warmth of promise. The air smelled faintly of fresh paint as Ethan stepped into the new Grace house with Mia and Noah by his side. It was their biggest project yet, standing tall in the heart of the city's South District, where abandoned lots had once told stories of struggle. Now, a new story was being written, one of hope. The walls were bright with color, hand-painted by volunteers and children from the neighborhood. On one wall, a mural showed a sunrise breaking through clouds, and beneath it were the words, "Love builds homes." Mia stood staring at it for a long moment before whispering, "That looks like the sunrise from the lake." Ethan smiled. "That is exactly what it is supposed to look like." Noah ran ahead, his sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. "Look, Ethan, there is a whole room just for art." Inside the room were shelves filled with brushes, paints, and blank canvases waiting to be touched by imagination. "This one will be your favorite, huh?" Ethan said. Noah grinned. "I'm going to paint rockets and animals and maybe a big tree." "You can paint anything," Ethan said. This is your space too." As they continued the tour, the building filled with the sound of children's laughter and chatter. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was set for that afternoon, and people were already gathering outside city officials, donors, volunteers, and families who would soon call this place home. Fiona found Ethan in the main hallway, her tablet tucked under one arm. "You should see the crowd out there," she said. "You have done something remarkable here." "We have," he corrected gently. "This was never just mine," she smiled. "You always say that, but it is your heart that started all this." "Maybe," he admitted, "but it is theirs that will keep it going." When the time came for the ceremony, Ethan stepped up to the small stage built in front of the entrance. Mia and Noah stood beside him, their hands in his. The crowd hushed as he spoke. "A few years ago, I believed success was measured in numbers, in profits, in square footage, in how high you could build a tower. But then I met two children who taught me something different. They showed me that the greatest thing we can build is trust, and the most valuable thing we can give is love. This house, and the ones before it, exist because of them and for every child who deserves a safe place to dream." The audience erupted in applause, but Ethan's eyes were on Mia and Noah. They smiled back at him, their faces glowing with pride. After the ribbon was cut, the celebration began. There were tables filled with food, balloons floating in the air, and music echoing through the courtyard. Mia helped serve cookies while Noah joined other children painting their handprints on a canvas that would hang in the lobby. Fiona found Ethan again, her voice soft. "You know, the city council wants to honor you with a humanitarian award next month." He looked at her with surprise. "That is kind of them, but they should honor the team instead. They want to honor the man who made this possible," she said. Ethan smiled. "Tell them I will accept only if the children can come too." As the afternoon faded into evening, golden light poured through the tall windows. Ethan walked through the building one last time, checking every room. In one of the bedrooms, he found a little girl sitting quietly on the bed, hugging a stuffed bear. She looked up when he entered. "Are you the man who made this house?" she asked. "I helped," he said. "Do you like it?" She nodded shyly. "It feels safe." Ethan felt his chest tighten. That is exactly what it is meant to feel like. He left her with a smile and stepped back into the hallway, where Mia and Noah were waiting. "Ready to go home?" he asked. "Can we come back tomorrow?" Mia said. "Of course," he said. "This is your home too." On the drive back, the city glowed with twilight. Noah had fallen asleep in the back seat, his head resting against the window. Mia was quiet for a long time before saying, "You know, Ethan, I think Mom would be really proud of you." The words hit him like a soft wave. He glanced at her in the rearview mirror, his throat tightening. "I hope so," he said softly. "She would be proud of you too." "Do you ever think she can see us?" Mia asked. "I think love never really goes away," he said. "It just changes form. Maybe it becomes sunlight, or wind, or the way someone's voice sounds when they care." Mia smiled, staring out the window. "Then I think she is the sunset." "That sounds about right," Ethan said quietly. When they arrived home, the apartment was bathed in the orange glow of evening. Mia carried Noah to his room while Ethan poured a glass of water and stood by the window, looking out at the city below. The skyline stretched endlessly, but for once, he did not see buildings or ambition. He saw people, lives intertwined, stories unfolding. His phone buzzed with a message from Fiona. "Congratulations. The mayor wants to meet next week about national expansion." Ethan smiled, but did not reply right away. He turned off the lights and walked to the children's room. They were both asleep, Mia's hand resting protectively on Noah's shoulder. He whispered, "You are my why." Then he sat for a moment in the quiet, realizing how different his world had become. The man who once measured worth in money now measured it in moments like this: two sleeping children, a city full of hope, and the soft echo of laughter still lingering in his ears. Outside, the stars began to appear, one by one, like promises kept. The morning of the national awards ceremony arrived bathed in soft sunlight that filtered gently through the curtains. Ethan stood before the mirror, adjusting his tie, but his thoughts were far away. Behind him, Mia sat on the couch with Noah, helping him fasten the small buttons on his shirt. "You look like a gentleman," she said proudly. Noah grinned. "Do I look like Ethan?" "Almost." Ethan said with a smile, turning toward them. "But you look better." They all laughed, and for a moment the room felt timeless, filled with warmth that had nothing to do with the occasion and everything to do with the bond they shared. As they drove through the city, billboards displayed the Shelter Hearts emblem, a golden heart encircled by two open hands, and Ethan felt a strange mix of humility and awe. He remembered the rainy night that had changed everything, the sight of a small girl huddled on a bus stop bench, and the decision that had rewritten his entire life. Now, years later, that single act of compassion had grown into a movement that stretched far beyond anything he had imagined. The ceremony took place in the grand hall of the city museum, its marble pillars gleaming under soft lights. As they entered, reporters called out his name, but Ethan's hand never left Mia's. She looked up at him and whispered, "Do you have to make a speech?" "Just a short one," he said, smiling. "But I think I know exactly what to say." The mayor welcomed everyone to the stage, speaking about leadership and humanity, about how one man's vision had ignited a nationwide effort to provide homes for children in need. When Ethan's name was called, the audience rose in applause. Mia squeezed his hand before he stepped forward. The microphone caught his quiet breath before he began. "I used to believe that building skyscrapers was my purpose, that reaching higher meant achieving more. But life has a way of humbling us, of showing us what really matters when everything else falls away. Years ago, I met a little girl who had nowhere to go. She did not ask for money or pity. She just wanted to be seen. That night changed me. It reminded me that success is not about standing above others, but standing beside them." The room was silent except for the sound of camera shutters clicking. "Shelter Hearts is not mine," he continued. "It belongs to every person who chooses kindness over convenience, every volunteer who gives their time, every child who dares to hope. This award is not for me. It is for them, for you, for the belief that love can, and always will, rebuild the world." The audience stood, applause echoing like thunder. Mia and Noah beamed from the front row, clapping until their small hands hurt. When Ethan stepped down from the stage, the mayor shook his hand and whispered, "You have reminded us all what leadership truly looks like." Later that evening, after the crowd had dispersed and the cameras were gone, Ethan drove the children to Grace House. The building glowed softly against the night sky, its windows lit like stars. Inside, children were playing board games, reading, and laughing. A little boy ran up to Ethan and hugged him tightly. "Thank you for the new library," he said. Ethan knelt down. "Do you like it?" The boy nodded. "It smells like new books and hope." Ethan chuckled softly. "That is the best kind of smell." He stood again, watching Mia and Noah join the others, helping a group of children build a puzzle. Fiona walked up beside him. "You did good," she said quietly. "More than good." He smiled, his gaze still on the kids. "I did what anyone should do when given a second chance." "Not everyone takes it," she replied. "You did." Hours later, when they returned home, the city was asleep. Ethan tucked Noah into bed, then sat beside Mia as she sketched something in her notebook. "What are you drawing?" he asked. She turned it toward him, a picture of Grace House beneath a bright Sunday. At the top, she had written, "Home is not where you live. It is where you are loved." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "That is perfect," he said softly. "Can I frame it?" "Only if you promise to hang it in your office," she said. "Deal," he replied. When she drifted off to sleep, he quietly stood by the window, looking out over the glowing city. From up there, he could see the faint outline of the first Grace House in the distance, the one named after Mia's mother, Grace House, the beginning of it all. The skyline shimmered, not as a monument to wealth or power, but as a reflection of something greater: compassion, perseverance, redemption. He thought about the man he used to be, the one who had once walked through life chasing numbers and prestige, and how that version of himself had died the night he stopped to help a child. The silence of the room wrapped around him like peace itself. When the clock struck midnight, he whispered a quiet thank you to the universe for the storm that had broken him, for the child who had healed him, and for the love that had rebuilt him. In the morning, sunlight spilled across the apartment, warm and golden. Mia was already at the piano, playing a gentle melody. Noah sat beside her, humming along. Ethan brewed coffee and watched them, his heart steady and full. The world outside continued to spin fast, loud, unpredictable, but inside, everything was exactly as it should be. He picked up the framed drawing from the table, the one that read, "Home is not where you live, it is where you are loved." He placed it on the wall beside the first picture Mia had ever given him. Then, turning toward the children, he said, "Come on, you two, let us go change the world again." As they laughed and raced to get ready, the camera of time seemed to pull back, revealing the man, the children, and the home they had built together not from bricks or blueprints, but from grace. And so, in a city that never truly sleeps, the story of Ethan Cole ended not with noise or grandeur, but with love quietly winning, one heart at a time.